Hey everybody, it's J-Wittz here, and I know that most of you guys are used to reading text reports for tournament reports. I usually am. I actually really enjoy writing them too, but since I'm trying to work on my on-the-fly speaking skills, and since you guys are starting to get used to me on video, and I've just been working with the video format for so long, I thought, why not? I'll give you guys a quick tournament report right here. It'll save a lot of time. It takes a lot less time than it takes to type. I've written up notes. Everything's fresh in my head right now, so if I say it right now, I'll probably be pretty accurate to what really happened. Anyways, for those of you guys who know me, I'm Josh Wittenkeller. I've got back into the game around 2008. This has been my second complete season. I've been working really hard to have a good season, and so far all my hard work has really paid off. And I don't want to sound like a blatant advertiser, but one of the big things that helped me out was Adam Capriola asking me to be a part of the Six Prizes Underground staff. And I think a big part of that was people really like me because they like the show, not necessarily because they, think that I'm this amazing pro player. The only credential that I had from the season before was winning regionals and top cutting nationals, which both are really nice, but aren't really like amazing feats. Never been to Worlds, never really got anything great going, but I'm new to the game. New to coming back to the game, and I'm slowly starting to figure everything out. But being a member of the staff of Six Prizes Underground let me read the other stuff that the other Underground writers were writing, and it really helped me get on board with writing better deck lists and making better in-game plays and some little things like preparation, things to do in tournaments, stuff like that. But I'll stop blabbing, but it was just a big part for me. That group really helped me see what it took to be a really good player, and I was very inspired by them to take that into my own hands. So throughout the season, I practiced very hard. I got very good, in my opinion, with Sabllock. I did really well at states and regionals, and that pretty much got my rating where it needed to be high enough to come into Worlds for the first time. At Nationals, it was just 3 rounds and drop, just to preserve my rating. I know that sounds dumb, but the way the rating thing works, I would have felt terrible if I lost it. I really wanted to experience Worlds for the first time, and as many of you guys have heard how I ended up performing at the event, I am by no means regretting that decision. I got to spend all my time at Nationals recording instead of actually playing and being stressed, and instead I took all that playing and stress and brought it to Worlds. So most of you guys are just want to get with the report, so I'll just give you guys a short look at how things kind of went. I immediately started testing Reshiram because it was a deck that I never looked at. I thought it was extremely underrated, and after I saw its performance at Nationals, I thought, that sounds like a pretty good deck. I started with the deck list that I believe Ahan, that's just his username. I'm actually not 100% sure of his real name, but from Six Prizes. I took his 9-0 list from Swiss, which sounded really good. It sounded like a great way to start, and it was. There was a lot with the list that I wasn't really fond of from the start. I ended up taking the Defenders out. I was not a very big fan of the Engineer's adjustments. I liked Junipers and Sages better, but the list gave me somewhere to start, and it really helped me out, so thank you very much for that. Worked with Reshiram for a long time. I want to say something like 2 to 3 weeks. Got all the cards that I needed to. I tested a lot of different techs. I wanted to be better in the mirror, better against Magnezone. Zoroark was my favorite tech for a while. It was working pretty well against both of those. The deck was consistent, but sometimes the deck, just couldn't set up for me because it is a deck with a small internal draw engine. It's got the Ninetales, which is really nice. You've got the Roast Reveal, which helps you get through the deck, but if you can't really get Ninetales online or can't really get a very fast Typhlosion, sometimes you'll whiff on supporters because you don't have room for very many, then things started to fall apart. Another thing I didn't really like is that the deck's pretty linear. You have about 2 attacks to go through the whole game. You can attack with Reshiram, or you can attack with Typhlosion. So 3 attacks actually. But I wanted to try things a little more diverse, so after hearing a little bit about all the different kinds of Zone Mega builds, I played Zone Mega at Nationals and thought it'd be a pretty natural transition to move on to some of the more complicated builds. One deck list that I liked in particular was the Aziz Al-Yami list, which was also the deck that Martin Moreno took to the top 32. And I found that list on Hay Trainer, And Chris Fulop also reiterated a little bit on that list and some of the decisions behind it in a Six Prizes Underground article. So after reading through, I really liked a lot of the decisions. The deck ran Kingdra, Yanmega, Magnezone, and Jirachi. Now, I wasn't sold on Jirachi right away until I heard that it could be used as a potential way to increase your energy the same way that you would have done with Pachirisu, except it also gives you the devolve option. I thought it sounded really good at first, and even though I didn't like it in my first about 10-15 games of the deck, eventually I found it really helping me out. It devolved things like Typhlosions down into Cyndaquils, Magnezones down into Magnemites, gave me cheap prizes, and that's what the deck's all about, and I really liked it. So I decided that I really liked that list as well as the Reshiram list, and I tested as much as I could over my vacation. Mostly, again, playing a lot of those Six Prizes Underground members, so I thank all you guys for testing with me, and it ended up helping out a lot. So eventually, after testing with Kingdra, I worked with a 2-1-2 line because I thought it was that important to the deck, and I only ran 10 energy, and I was pretty happy with it. I felt like the energy count wasn't really too low for me. I was still getting Magnezone attacks off pretty often. The Kingdra was getting out a lot. Everything was working. I felt like I had a decent matchup against everything, and unless it was a deck that I hadn't played before, thought everything was good. So I arrived at Worlds, and there's not really too much to talk about. I could talk about my whole experience, but I'm going to try and do that in another video, and I'm just going to get straight to the tournament report. But one thing I will say is the night before, I was testing my deck, and I thought, I need some more work against Reshiram, and I did horribly. I lost about 6 or 7 games in a row. Things were falling apart. The deck was falling apart. Things were not going well. Also, earlier in the day, I lost pretty badly to both Conley and Alex Freza in the mirror. I got those games fully recorded, and I'm hoping to get them with commentary later in videos. But in the meantime, just talking about those matches, their lists only ran the 101 Kingdra. They were all about consistency and minimal techs, and I felt like that's why they beat me and what made their decks a little bit better than mine. So after losing both to the Reshiram and Con and Alex, I decided to try a list a little bit more like theirs. They didn't work with the Jirachi, but they played a lot more energy, full Magnezone line, stuff like that, and I decided to take out the 2-1-2 Kingdra, make it a 1-0-1, turn that extra space into maxing my reversals. I worked with 3 for a while and decided 4 was important. Made my energy all the way up to 11, and I maxed out my Magnezones. So with the new consistent list, things were going all right against Reshiram. I did panic for a while. I was trying some other decks at the last minute. Decided that the best thing for me to do is to take the deck that I've been testing the most recently. That was the Zone Mega deck, and it ended up working really well for me. I've proven myself in the past to do very, very bad when making a last-minute decision, so I decided to stick with that and not change, and things went pretty well. So on to the tournament itself. Game 1 was against Curtis Lyon from Canada. He was playing a Reshiram deck, but when the game started I was kind of confused. He flipped over both a Vulpix and a Horsey, so I saw it and I was like, where's he going with this? Eventually I found out it was just a Kingdra attack in the Reshiram. I don't know if it was to replace plus power, but he didn't play a plus power over the course of the game, so I guess it was just his way of getting an easy access to 10 damage each turn to pile up on Magnezones, get the easy one-shots with Reshiram. Unfortunately for him, both me going first and him having a slow setup didn't really help him out very much. I tried to do what I knew about the matchup to play it well. Just tried to stop his Typhlosions from coming out, and by preventing that, it kind of slows down the Reshiram, and I can start taking those out. Things went pretty well for me. I flipped a little bit above average, I think maybe like 3 out of 5 on reversal flips, which helped a little bit, and things went well. I won my very first game, my very first World Championships. I was really happy about it. Curtis was a very respectful and fun opponent, and I was moving on to Game 2. Game 2 was against Tom Hall from the UK, and it was pretty exciting because it was another fellow Underground reg from Six Prizes Underground, and things went underway, and he flips over a Zekrom. Now, looking over at the Zekrom, it was one of the decks that I was really worried about. I heard that it had some mild success. Yamato grinded in with it, and I heard the Japanese had it, and they were very big fans of the deck. I had 0 testing against Zekrom. I just decided that if I was going to work on matchups, I might as well work on the ones that I'll probably mostly end up seeing. So I decided to skip out on Zekrom, and luckily things went pretty well for me. He set up kind of slowly. He got the Pachirisu and Shaman, but only got 2 energy onto his Zekrom, and he went second. So he was able to do 40 damage to my Yanma, but not knock it out. And eventually he just stopped hitting draw, and things weren't going very well for him while I set up. I started going up on prizes, and eventually at one point I had 4 prizes taken. I think he only had 1 taken. He started to try and make a comeback, and I made a couple of misplays here or there. I forgot to spray splash a turn or 2, which was a mistake that plagued me throughout the event, just because I was a little bit nervous. I haven't played in a big scale tournament in a while. I only played 3 rounds at Nationals, so wasn't really in the right mindset until the deeper rounds, but things were going well for me, so I guess I could afford to mess up a little bit. And time was called. I was getting kind of close to decking out, but there was just no way for him to match the prize count that I had taken by the time was called, and I won my second game. We go 2-0. Game 3 was against Bruno Martin from Argentina, and this is the quickest report that I've got. I actually know everything went in detail, but I'll just keep it short for you guys. Took 3 turns. I went first again, so for the 3rd time in a row, going first. He starts, judges on his first turn, benches a Pokemon and passes. I knock out something with the Unmega. He draws, passes. I knock something out with the Unmega, and that's the game. It was a pretty easy win. I was very happy at this point because I didn't know how long my luck streak was going to go. Getting what's essentially a dog from my deck I felt would be really helpful in improving my rating, and I moved on to Game 4 with 3-0 rating. Game 4 was against Jason Harry, and I knew at this point things were really going to start stepping up. He got top 4 at U.S. Nationals. I knew he'd be a tough opponent. He was playing the Mirror, which was something I was comfortable with, but I knew could be really tricky. And on top of that, we were sitting at table 1, and the top cut recorded almost our entire game before their battery ran out. So there was a lot of pressure. It was a, I don't know, pretty professional setting, but I felt pretty good about things, and things went off. Going first again really did help. So this was going first for 4 times in a row, and I know that it's really crucial, so I knew I was getting a lot of luck at this point, but the game went, and he got set up way faster than me and started taking a small lead. Eventually, getting things like an early Kingdra out really helped me. It let me get a couple of key prizes with the Yanmega on his benched things, while I tried to reversal up some of his Magnazones with 0 energy to buy me some time. Ended up working out, and we ended up tying up on prizes going back and forth, but eventually the real game changer was I started setting up potential prizes for Jirachi. I was able to get 50 damage on 2 Magnazones, and time was called, and moving into my turn, I drew, played Jirachi, and I flipped for his Stardust Song Pokemon power. Just needed 1 heads. And the way I've been going with that power, and I know it is a very, very tedious way, and it can get very stressful, is I flip them 1 at a time. I don't know why I do it because it's really stressful, but I went tails, tails. I needed the 1 heads. I got the heads on the 3rd flip. Got 1 energy, attached another from my hand, and devolved as 2 Magnazones to essentially give me the win. So this, in my opinion, was one of the best plays that I've ever made in a game. I was pretty proud about it. I set things up, beat a good player, and we both got set up, and I was pretty happy. We extended my lead to 4-0. I knew that it would be pretty easy to top cut going from such a high rating, and I decided to, keep accepting my good luck, keep moving forward, and moving on. Game 5 was against Ross Cawthorn, a guy that everyone's basically talking about right now, and it was because of his crazy deck. It was Pichu, Tropical Beach, Reuniclus, Vileplume, Zekrom, Donphan, Blissey Prime, Suicune, Entei Legend. Now, I know that that sounds absolutely nuts, and that's because it is. It was an extremely risky play. He obviously couldn't have tested everything. You can't test Tropical Beach. We got it the night before. So he took a huge risk, did extremely well because of it, and it was a wild game. He started Pichu, started getting all kinds of strange things in the bench, and I had no idea what to do. He got things like Solosis down, he got a couple of Oddish, he got a Zekrom, and I was just straight up confused. Lucky for me, I was able to set up a few Magnazones with my trainers before he was able to set up the trainer lock, and eventually started figuring out what his deck was supposed to do. He uses the Reuniclus to move damage counters to prevent you from taking any prizes by either pushing up something like a Donphan, Suicune Entei Legend, or the Zekrom, all which have high HP, and he can manipulate the damage to get prizes how he likes. He can move them away and then use Blissey Prime to get rid of the damage. He can move them to the big HP, 160 HP, Suikonente Legend. Basically, it's all about damage manipulation, and while trainer locking you, he can afford to go that slow and fall behind on prizes. He also ran a lot of twins, which also helped with that. Unfortunately, falling behind in prizes is what his deck did. I took the first 4 without him taking a single one. And I think a lot of that was due to some careful planning and me understanding what his deck did. Now, the idea behind his deck was moving all those damage counters, so I figured out the only way that you can really win against his deck is by getting one-shot prizes. You can't leave any damage left over because he'll just move it with Reuniclus exactly where he wants it. You can move it to Zekrom to knock you out perfectly and make sure he doesn't get knocked out. He can heal it. He can do all kinds of crazy stuff. And so I decided to take the cheap snipe prizes as soon as I could. Then I built up a Magna Zones and took prizes there. There are plenty of times where I could have sniped with Yanmega or attacked with Yanmega, but instead I just kept passing. I knew I didn't want to put any damage counters in play. I got Kingdra out turn 2, found out it was a mistake because I didn't spray splash the entire game. I knew that just giving him damage would help him out more. So I took all the prizes that I could. Eventually, time was called. I had taken 5 prizes and he had taken 1. And while his full board was set up at this point, and maybe given 10-15 more minutes he could have done it, there was just no way for him to win on time. And I moved on, beating a rogue to go 5-0. At this point I knew Top Cut was guaranteed. I felt great about it. This is my first World Championships, but knew I had to just keep on playing my hardest and going on. Game 6 was against Tom Dolzel, and he's from the US. And as many of you guys know, he is one of the most consistent players in the game, considering the very small amount of tournaments that he plays. He usually only plays in Nationals, Top Cuts as far as he needs to get the invitation into Worlds, and then usually Top Cuts at Worlds. So he's an extremely good player. He's got a great mind for the game. He barely has to play, and he does well. He did well again at this year's World Championships, and it was an honor to play him. He was playing Reshiram, and what I forgot to mention last game is after those first 4 games going first every single time, I never went first again. So I went second last game, went second this one, and unfortunately for him, his setup was slow. I mulliganed 3 straight times, and he went first. He starts Vulpix and draws. He has something like a 10-card hand, looks at his hand, and he passes. Now, I know he runs a consistent build, so I must have gotten very lucky. Must have drawn terribly. And it really was what I needed to get back into the game, because my hand was terrible too. We both set up very slow. I think I got something like a turn 5 Magna Zone, and eventually started exchanging prizes. It was one here, one there. Eventually I got Kingdra out, which really helped me out, setting up to win on time, but otherwise it was just back and forth, back and forth. I took one with Jirachi, because it was the only prize I could take. Eventually time is called. I'm very close to decking out, and I decide to try and set up a prize any way I can. And I do it by spray splashing his Cleffa over a series of 3 turns, and reversing one of his Reshirams with 0 energy on it. So I deny him taking a prize. I take a prize coming into my turn with 0 cards left in my deck, and that happened to be the end of time. I know that it kind of stinks winning on time, seeing as I technically lost, because there was no cards left in my deck, and there wasn't really anything else that I could have done to prevent that. It just happened to be the way that I could win. Neither of us were really accounting for time. It just happened while we were playing. Neither of us were really slow playing. We tried to play the best pace as we could, and I just did what I could when it was called to take the prize that I needed to take. Moving on to Game 7, and this would be the last game. It was just 2 6-0 players. It was me versus Sammy Zekrom from the UK, one of the most accomplished players as far as the World Championships goes, and I was very excited, but also very intimidated. Luckily for me, Sammy is one of the most respectable and kind players that I've ever played. We exchanged a lot of, friendly conversation before. He actually didn't really know me, and I don't blame him. As far as the competitive scene goes, I haven't really established myself yet. This is my season where I aimed to, and things went really well. I went 11th in North America to make my way into Worlds. And now all of a sudden I'm 6-0 at Worlds, and everybody's asking about me, and people are starting to figure out. Sammy being one of them. He heard about the show, but hadn't really seen it. Tried to explain myself, and He was very interested in my story, he was very nice, and we ended up playing a very good game of Pokemon. He went first, and he set up. I did not. I tried to wall behind a Cleffa, tried to reversal things. I did all I could, but I was setting up very, very slowly. He went up a 2-3 prize lead, but eventually I was able to turn things around, once again, by getting the first Kingdra out, getting some cheap prizes, some reversals for things that couldn't move, and eventually I started coming very close to tying things back up. Eventually it turned into a prize race, him taking a prize, me taking a prize, but him being just ahead of that. Time was called, but it didn't matter. He was just able to take one prize that I wasn't able to take. Came down to another one of those Jirachi things. He played a Jirachi this time, flipped tails, tails, and then heads. If he got all tails, I think I would have won, but can't really complain about that at all. I expect at least one heads on each Jirachi that you play. It's like playing a time-space distortion back in the day. But it was a great game. I did everything I could to come back to it, and I was happy that I went second and fell behind, but was still able to come back against a very good player. So Sammy emerged as the only 7-0. I ended up 6-1, putting me at 4th seed for the top 16 the next day, and I was very, very excited. Next day, I tried to sleep as much as I could, but I didn't get too much in. I played Miska Sarim from Finland. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, but you seemed to respond to it when I said it to you, so I hope that that's alright. And it was another Reshiram game. Now, lucky for me, both games he ended up setting up pretty slowly. Both games he relied on using a Manaphy and some Deep Sea Swirls to get things going, and luckily for me, I hit a ton of reversals. I even said this in the middle of the game. I was like, I'm sorry, I know that this is really lucky, but he seemed to be really okay with it. He was like, that's the game, and I was surprised. He played the whole thing through with a lot of tact. He didn't seem visibly frustrated by the games, even though I know he's performed well at events before. He went first at Worlds in 2006 as a senior, and he also said that he got top 4 at Worlds in 2009. So, and he even established with me, he's like, oh, this is your first World? So this is my 6th. So it was really good to get a little bit of luck and be doing well against a seasoned player, but I think even more respectable that a seasoned player was getting some losses due to some great luck by a new player and taking it very, very well. I won both games pretty quickly, just getting a lot of reversals, Sonic Boom knockouts, Magnezone knockouts. Never had to use Jirachi, never had to do anything special, just took a lot of prizes, went up very quickly in both games, even though I went second both times. He just got slow setups, I got a lot of luck, and things went well for me. At the end of the game, he taught me how to say good luck and finish, which I thought was extremely cool, and I moved on to the top 8. This is extremely cool for me. First of all, just even being in top cut, but also to advance even farther, and I was just extremely excited. Top 8 put me once again against Tom Dolzel, who I know is an extremely good player, and I knew I was going to get some great games, and luckily I did. Game 1, he got set up very quickly. I didn't. He started rolling me very quickly, and I knew that I was not going to have time to work with things, so I scooped after he took about 2 prizes. I just knew I had no chance. He was reversing everything. He had 2 Typhlosion out. I knew that there was no way to turn it around, and I moved to Game 2. Game 2, I choose to go first, because he went first the first game, and I started working. I got a very fast start. He got a very slow start, and I did make a few misplays over the course of the game. It was my own fault. I was just, hurrying, trying to finish this game since, the first game didn't go well. I was just trying to do my best, and still being my first Worlds, I am a little bit inexperienced when it comes to making crucial top cut decisions for a very big money game. Few mistakes being one of them playing a reversal and picking the wrong Pokemon. I think I forgot to Spray Splash one turn, and then there was one turn where I accidentally announced Linear Attack instead of Sonic Boom, where Sonic Boom would have given me a knockout. Each of these I asked if I could take back the move, and I encourage you guys who play, always ask, just in case. You never know if your opponent will extend you that courtesy or not. He didn't, but he was really respectful about it. I totally understood, and I just kept on trying to play the best that I could. Lucky for me, I was in a pretty good position. He set up slow, and despite my few misplays that I wish I could have taken back, I was able to take the win on Game 2, and we moved to Game 3. Game 3 played out a lot like Game 1. he set up and I didn't, but lucky for me, I got very lucky on Cleffa flips. I flipped a lot of tails after an Eek, was able to set up my board, was able to reversal one of his Typhlosions, and off of a judge, he eventually hit a dead hand. Couldn't do anything. He draw past for about 2 to 3 turns, and eventually I was able to move my Cleffa, and I actually took the first prize. So we ended up going into a kind of prize exchange back and forth, and time was called very early. We had each only taken about 2 prizes, so it became an exchange. He was turn 0, me 1, him 2, me 3, and so forth. Now eventually he was able to turn the tide in his favor, and he was up on the prize exchange, so he was taking 1, then I took 1, then he took 1, then I took 1, but he was always 1 up. I tried to do everything I could to deny him the prizes that he needed, so I tried to do Eek with Cleffa. Now if I flipped tails with Cleffa, it would have put me at a great advantage of taking that last prize after time to win, after turn 3 had already been played, but I flipped heads for once. After all those tails, he's able to take his prize, I took my prize to match, time was over, and on his turn, he showed his hand. He had 2 junk arms to get 2 plus powers to knock out my Magnezone with a blue flare. So after some close games, a prize to prize in time, and all the way in game 3, I finally lost in top 8 to Tom Dulzel, who went all the way into 3rd. Anyways, I'm just extremely happy to have gotten as far as I did. This is my first World Championships, and I've been working really hard to perform well. Not only because personally I like to drive myself to do the best that I can, but also I know that being a good player is only going to help more people want to get interested in my show, and it's going to help the new players who are watching my show know that they're getting the best information. Now, I'm being the best player that I can try and help teach you guys the best, and it just helps everybody out in the long run. And I'm happy to say that this season is one that I'm extremely happy with. Ended 11th in North America on ranking, and was able to get my invitation to Worlds through that, and ended 5th this year at the 2011 World Championships, the trading card game and Masters. Now, I can't really ask for more than that. There's many more accomplished players than I have been playing for a lot longer who have not had the luck or the right matchups as me to get that far. And I know that this format can be one that can be won on coin flips. I was happy. I flipped pretty even, about 50-50 on coin flips over the course of the day. Never got donked, and I'm just really, really happy to be in the place that I am. I'd like to extend a special thank you to all of you guys and all your support. I wouldn't be able to be running this show for almost 2 years if it wasn't for you guys, and I just heard nothing but wonderful things from you guys at Worlds. All the kids, all the people who just got into the game, people getting through the grinder, everybody coming and congratulating me. Everything was great. I really appreciate it from all of you, and I hope to see you guys all in future tournaments, and hopefully Worlds next year, even though it's in Hawaii, and it will be tough to afford. I'm hoping to sell some of my World swag down the line to help pay for that in the future, but I'll get to that, give you guys links for that when the time comes, when I have everything ready to sell. I know that this kind of tournament report might not be the best for some of you visual learners who like reading things and getting a scenario in your head, but I hope I at least spoke it well enough for you guys to figure out how things went and kind of understand the emotions behind how I was feeling over the course of the game. As you guys can tell, I'm just completely excited and stoked over this whole thing. I had a blast at the event, which I'll talk about later, but the actual tournament itself, I'm extremely happy about how I performed. I'm going to keep practicing, playing as hard as I can, and I look forward to another exciting season of Pokemon Organized Play next year. For those of you guys watching this on YouTube, check the description, and for those of you guys who got this link in the forum, I posted it right below the link. You guys will find a props and slops section. It'd take forever to read them all, but most tournament reports seem to include them, so I thought I'd put them in too. Thank you very much for hearing my report. I'll try and get the best stuff that I can down the line, but unfortunately, because I was so caught up in playing, I was not able to get the best footage. My girlfriend Renae got a lot about the actual experience of the event itself, and I do hope that you guys check out her channel. It's youtube.com/Renae Collects, R-E-N-A-E Collects. And she will have a lot more stuff about the event, the venue, all the location stuff, and I hope you enjoy that as well. I'll try and get everything together that I could with the footage that I've got, and I'll do some more official private videos as soon as I'm back. Thanks for your patience. Thank you for all your kind comments, support, and just encouragement over the course of this tournament, and I'll see you guys all next season. Peace.